Like, what's the problem with xenophobic nationalism? Don't you think that's better for Americans in general?
Yup, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation, arguing with a girl that's clearly a fascist, surrounded by 20 Republicans. Okay, I'm not actually Sam Seder, but while we're here, let's talk about this video. A few clips of progressive talk show host Sam Seder debating these Trump supporters on Jubilee have been going viral, in part because of how mind-bogglingly stupid some of them are.
Every private and public sector gets tax cuts when you hire a person of color.
Government agencies don't pay taxes. Government agencies are funded by the government.
That is not true. That is not true. And
oh
you know
my
what?
God, this generation is so cooked. Why did I agree to do this?
And
And as funny as that clip is, that's not what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the woman from the start of this video instead. Self-proclaimed journalist Sarah Stock. For context, Sam has just made the claim that
Unless you're a billionaire, a religious fundamentalist, or a xenophobic nationalist, voting for Trump was a mistake.
in response, Sarah makes a few interesting arguments.
So I actually think that this liberal world order needs to be thrown away completely, and I think Christian nationalism would be a good alternative. And same with xenophobic like, what's the problem with xenophobic nationalism? Don't you think that's better for Americans in general?
To be xenophobic nationalism is better.
We should have a coherent culture. Everyone should be a part of the same culture. We should have assimilation.
Which, do you get to choose what the culture is?
We already have a dominant culture.
What is
based
the dominant
on
culture?
European and Christian values and identity. That is the dominant culture.
White Christian.
It's rooted in European identity.
Notice a few things here. First, Sarah isn't trying to disprove Sam's claim, instead arguing that being a religious and xenophobic nationalist is a moral outlook, basically conceding his point. Secondly, she makes two really interesting claims: that the current liberal world order should be thrown out, and that America is a white, European, and Christian country. This clip catapulted Sarah Stock into fame, garnering a large audience, primarily of anti-Semites and racists, and also garnering the attention of some big names in the right-wing space, such as Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire. Sam Seder is offended by her definition of America's identity, but he has no alternative definition. This is how the left plays the game. They condemn your definition, but offer no coherent alternative. Their definition of everything is just not that. America was founded by Christians of European descent. This is just a historical fact. It's absurd to deny it. This country is distinctly Christian and European at its core. On top of this, he directly quote tweets Sam Seder and asks some interesting questions. What is America's identity? What is America? In a response to this, in a segment by Michael Noels, Sarah Stock joked that she wanted half credit when the Daily Wire releases a What is America documentary. Sorry, the Daily Wire. Beat you guys to it on this one. If you want to make the documentary, we can work out a 90% royalty deal on all tickets sold. Your move. Okay, back to Matt Walsh. Let's take these questions seriously. In the video, Sam Seder didn't provide an extremely coherent alternative to Sarah Stock's concept of American identity, which, to be fair, wasn't what the debate was about. So, let's try and do that. I'll give an explanation on what I think American identity is later, but first let's talk about what it isn't. To start, America isn't founded by Christians, it was founded by Protestants. Catholics throughout American history have faced persecution. At the time of America's founding, only a small percentage of Americans and just one signer of the Declaration of Independence was Catholic. Throughout the 1800s, there was a large nativist backlash to Catholic immigrants, with the Know Nothing Party being founded specifically to oppose Catholic immigration. Even as recently as 1960, John F. Kennedy being a Catholic was viewed as a detriment to his ability to be president, and this was a frequent issue he faced throughout his campaign.
So it is apparently necessary for me to state once again, not what kind of church I believe in, for that should be important only to me, but what kind of America I believe in.
Now, Matt Walsh and Sarah Stock, as proud upholders of America's cultural founding, are surely Protestant, right? 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 Oh, what's that? They're both Catholic? Yeah, cool, okay. Come on, guys. Where's your patriotism? Your faith in the American Protestant identity? I mean, Sarah has been tweeting about WASPs all week, which literally stands for White Anglo-Saxon Protestant. It's in the name. Okay, let's be fair. I'm not the only person to make these criticisms, pointing out anti-Catholic sentiment in American history, which did lead Sarah to respond on Twitter. I love how people respond to my claim about European Christians building America with, well, what about the Irish and Italian Catholics? Yeah, those are also European Christians, silly. The problem here is that she completely misses the point. Irish and Italian Catholics face discrimination during their migration process due to their difference in what you would consider to be American identity and culture. Today, it's a complete non-issue. This means that the original identity of America at its founding is not the same as it is today, and that means it can change. So it's worth asking the question, who gets to decide what groups fit into the American cultural identity? I mean, personally, as a non-Catholic, I don't think all these Catholics should be claiming an American identity. I mean, who are they to tell us Protestants what an American is? To Sarah's credit, she points out that Irish and Italians were always considered legally white. This is true, but also, who cares? This isn't a discussion of what it means to legally be an American. This is a question of what the culture and identity of America was. I doubt that Sarah Stock would agree that the Haitians that immigrated here during the Biden administration are Americans, so why are we even talking about the legality of it? Probably because she knows that the inclusion of Irish and Italian Catholics shows that the definition of American identity has evolved over time and is trying to do historical revisionism to get around that. To be fair, Sarah does make another point, arguing that Irish and Italian Catholics are fine because they assimilated into the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant culture. One small problem. Clearly, she's never seen the movie Little Italy, because if she had, she would know that Italian culture is alive and well. Okay, seriously though, Italian culture is obviously present in major cities like New York and Boston, and it's absurd to suggest that they've fully assimilated to an English Protestant identity. I mean, I'm filming this video on St. Patrick's Day. Cities are literally dyeing their rivers green. Do you think that's Protestant culture? Do you think that's rooted in English origins? Like, I genuinely just fail to understand the difference between Italian and Irish Catholics and, say, Chinese people whose families have been in the United States for generations. Like, think about the ABG stereotype, which clearly has a Western influence on it. What makes those people non-Americans and the Italian and Irish Catholics that Sarah's talking about Americans? What's the difference here? Oh, that's right, you tell us. It's because they're not white. Basically, what's going on here is that Sarah is ignoring the historical circumstances that have faced different ethnic groups and is retroactively trying to change history to fit this narrative that America is a country based on a white Christian ideal. This way, she can include Irish and Italian people as part of the American culture because they're white, while excluding people that are clearly American because they're not white. And coincidentally, since Catholics are now included in what makes America America, she now fits into that bubble. But I hear people protest. Even if America is a Protestant nation, that still makes it Christian. This country was founded by Christian people on Christian ideals, which makes it a Christian country. Well, let's ask those Christians what they think. Here's a quote from John Adams as president.
The government of the United States is not, in any sense, founded on the Christian religion.
Well, John Adams was no good anyways. Let's go to a true American, Thomas Jefferson, who owned a Quran in his house and denied Jesus' divinity, was commonly accused of being an infidel. This begs the question. If American identity is that of Christianity, are John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, two vital founding fathers and our second and third presidents respectively, not American for not believing in this identity, all because two Catholics disagree? Just because America was a nation of Christian people doesn't mean it was a Christian nation. In the same way that England, a nation of primarily secular people, is still arguably a Christian country due to its government's entwinement with religion, seen through the persistence of the monarchy. But it's obvious looking at anything from America's founding that America was intended to be a secular country, regardless of the beliefs of the population. That's the Christian ideal, or should I say Protestant ideal, that this country was founded on. I mean, look at the Declaration of Independence. It doesn't say all men are endowed rights by God. It says by their creator. This was a deliberate choice by Jefferson, a deist, to be ambiguous regarding religion. One last point regarding what the identity of America isn't. It's not white. Obviously, black people have been a core part of the country for centuries, which is something Sarah and Matt conveniently ignore when talking about America's white origins. And if you need any more proof that the dominant culture isn't solely white, look at the last Super Bowl halftime show. And after all, the Super Bowl is an American institution. Right, Matt? I think Thomas Jefferson said that. Also, come on, look at these monthly listener numbers. Okay, I've spent plenty of time talking about what America isn't. As Matt Walsh pointed out, that's all the left can do. So, let's talk about what America is. Because, believe it or not, me, Sarah, and Matt all agree on something.
We already have a dominant culture.
What is the
based
dominant
on
culture?
European values and identity.
America was founded by, and arguably still is bounded by, European values. But that means nothing, because there's a lot of different values that come from Europe. And America obviously isn't a mashup of every single European value ever. No, America can historically be traced back to a specific set of European values. The Enlightenment. What are the fundamental pieces of literature that define the United States? The founders wrote a lot. Like, a lot. And they also disagreed with each other a lot. But there are two works that represent the vast majority of founding fathers coming together and presenting a unified vision for the United States. You know them, you might love them, you learned about them in 5th grade history. It's the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. Throughout these two pieces, Enlightenment and liberal values are expressed throughout. And I use liberal in the philosophical term. representing values like freedom, democracy, equality, right to private property, and consent of the governed. Liberalism, in this philosophical sense, isn't inherently left-wing and arguably is a centrist ideology. But at this point, it is revolutionary for a government to be adopting these values. Note that traditional conservatives like Ronald Reagan to democratic socialists like Bernie Sanders both believe in these Enlightenment liberal ideas. Now, I know we learned this in school, but it seems some people have forgotten, so let's do a quick rundown. The Declaration of Independence states that all people have the right to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and other unalienable rights. It also says that it's the right of the people to shape the government and that all men are created equal. That's all within the second paragraph. The Constitution establishes that the people are what gives the government its power and sets up a system with elections and checks and balances and rules of law. More than that, we have something called the Bill of Rights. That gives us freedom of speech, religion, due process, right to a lawyer, to a jury, and later on in the Constitution would be amended to add the abolition of slavery, the right to vote for women, and equality under the law. You know what that sounds like? Enlightenment liberalism. I'm not going to try and argue that the United States has always been perfect in being a liberal democratic society. Lord knows we haven't. But the fundamental principles that were set up by both the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence that were agreed upon by James Madison and Thomas Jefferson and George Washington and Alexander Hamilton and John Adams, all these very important people that had fundamentally different frameworks for how they viewed the world, are essential to who we are as a country. And throughout history, we've worked to bring those principles into action by enacting equal protection, women's suffrage, the direct election of senators, the Civil Rights Act, the list goes on and on. More than just being the soul of American identity, they're inspiring to the world as well. A few decades later, France would have its own revolution where they would advocate for a liberal democratic system of governance. And throughout the 19th and 20th centuries, countries across the world would fight for freedom and democracy in their own nation. Today, liberal democracy, again, the fundamental principle of the United States, is the world order. Now, what does Sarah think about that again?
So I actually think that this liberal world order needs to be thrown away completely, and I think Christian nationalism would be a good alternative.
Irony, right? The two claims she makes about preserving American identity and also throwing out the liberal world order contradict each other. All right, one last thing. Let's talk about the whole melting pot thing, which was a major point of both Sarah Stock and Matt Walsh.
You know, this melting pot stuff is almost beside the point anyway. Even if America is a melting pot, that does not answer the question of identity. Melting pot is not an identity. Let's just agree with Sam Seder for a moment, just for the sake of argument. It's a melting pot. Fine. Melting into what? And for what purpose?
It's melting into each other. That's the point of the phrase. Different cultures are interacting with each other to form a new pot.
Say I told you about an exciting new organization that I just founded. And you ask me, well, what is the organization? And I say, oh, it's an organization with a bunch of different kinds of people. It's a melting pot of people. Do you see how you would still have absolutely no clue what the hell sort of organization it is? I would not have explained anything about what the organization actually is or why it exists or what its purpose is.
Yeah, but we're not making an organization. We're making a country. And we're not asking what the point of the country is. We're asking for its identity. And again, we already know what the point of the country is. It's written into our Constitution. What does Sarah have to say?
Well, actually, no. I think actually the identity of America has been, for better or for worse, a melting pot in that regard.
Yeah, maybe since like the 1960s.
The term melting pot was popularized in a 1908 play by Israel Zangwill to describe America. And it's not like the play didn't have a wide impact. President Theodore Roosevelt loved the play and stated that it was a key work that influenced his opinions. Matt Walsh, in your words, this is one of America's most badass men. Side note, that tweet comes from a post where Matt Walsh is stating that we should kick Abe Lincoln off of Mount Rushmore to make room for Donald Trump. So do with that information what you will. Now, to be fair, Israel Zangwill was using the term melting pot to describe the melting of different European cultures. But I also think it's important to note that he included Jewish people into that category, something Sarah seemingly doesn't. The entire point here is that if you try and define what American identity is, what it means to be an American, based on entirely religious and ethnic identities, you're never going to stop drawing pointless lines. Ben Franklin was famously against German immigration to the United States, but as someone with German ancestry, I somehow don't feel as if Sarah would question my Americanness. So, what should you take away from this video? Well, maybe that this country was founded on liberal values and that people like this threaten those. Maybe America has historically been a melting pot of different national identities. Or maybe we shouldn't be getting lectured on what an American is by someone who's literally Canadian.